In this video, we're adding our first sound effects. So the ball goes clunk clunk. We should be able to hear it. There we go. When the ball hits the paddle or the wall or the blocks, it makes triggers a sound effect. So let's jump in and get started making sound effects. Rightio, let's start by understanding a couple of key concepts when it comes to audio in Unity. I'm going to throw at you three pieces of terminology: audio listener, audio source, and audio clip. So the audio listener is something we need to hear the sound. The audio source is something we need to play the sound. And the audio clip is the sound. So let's have a look at that and where these things reside. Typically, your camera is where your audio listener is. The audio listener is the thing that allows you to hear the sound. And the reason that it is in a particular place, that it's on a game object and not just generally the game, is because we have the ability in Unity to have sound at a different distance away from the camera, or away from wherever we want to listen to it. So if we click the 2D button up the top, just as a reminder, our game, although it looks 2D, it's actually in 3D with our flat 2D shapes going on here. The camera, and side note, I've turned off my gizmos, make them a little bit bigger. There is the camera. I'm going to turn them off again in a moment because they get in the way and they make me a bit annoyed. But for now, we'll have a look. Here's the camera, and you can see that the camera has a certain distance to objects in the game. And if we wanted to say an object that was very close to the camera sounds loud, an object very distant to the camera sounds less loud, then we can do that by using 3D spatial sound. We're not going to do that in this video, probably not that much in this section, but I just wanted to show you that's the reason we have a specific listener, and for us it lives on the camera. Okay, so then we need an audio source to play the sound. And what we'll do here is click on ball, and we need to add a component to the ball, which is the audio source, the thing that plays the sound. So click on add component. I've already typed this in previously, audio source, and add this audio source component. And you can see we get a whole bunch of really cool things in here. It's looking for an audio clip. That's the thing it plays. And there's a few other settings we'll get to in a moment. So what's the audio clip? Well, against this lecture, I've given you 5 sound effects, just little simple things that I've made myself. What we'll do is, first of all, if you want to download that and unzip that, that'd be a great start. I'm going to create a new folder, right-click, create folder. I'll call this audio. Within audio, open that up, get my sound effects again, and highlight all these, drag them in. So you need to unzip it first, and then drag that into Unity, and you see, hey presto, there they are. Now, my sound effects are in .ogg, Vorbis style. Style, is that the word? Format, I think maybe that's the better word. And if you have a look in the Unity docs I've given you, the audio files here shows that the supported formats are MP3, OGG, WAV, and so on. So generally, these are the 3 most common that you'll see. I prefer to use OGG files. I find that they give a better sound quality than MP3, and they're also smaller. You don't ever want to use WAV files because they are massive, and it's going to make your game really get huge. Audio files can really make your game stack up in terms of size, and in general, everything we do, we want to keep our game as lean and mean as possible. Or at least lean, not necessarily mean. Okay, so we now have some sound effects, some sound clips. If you double click on those, you'll hear we've got bounce and click and boing, and you can't hear my system at the moment, but what I'll do is I'll unmute my system. You should be able to hear that. Okay, hopefully it's not too loud. I haven't played around with that very much. And I mentioned before about my icons. I've just been fiddling around with these off camera for a moment, so you might have seen them change a little bit, but what I want to do is to turn them off so we don't see them. Just grab the slider, you see 3D icons, drag them all the way down, and then they disappear. I tend to not look at them as a reminder for what's going on, and they just get in the way for me. But you can leave yours on if you want to remember, hey, which things have an audio source on it and which don't. So you can see there was a little audio speaker there. That meant there was audio source. And we can now see audio source. It's looking for a clip. We can click on the selector and then choose the particular clip. I'm going to go for SFX click. It's just a simple click of me going into a microphone and recording that, and tidying it up in Audacity. We might do a little bit of Audacity at some point in the course, but for now, we're just getting the structure of how do we play the sounds, not so much about how do we make them. Okay, and we have a couple of other settings here. Play on awake is interesting. It's set as on to default. That means as soon as we start the game, the sound effect will trigger. That's handy if we have something like music that we want to have start just on awake, but we don't for this sound effect, so we will turn that off. We can also change the volume and the pitch and a couple of other 3D related things. It's handy being able to change the volume up and down a little bit if you've got one particular sound effect that's a bit too loud. Okay, so now that we have our audio listener that was already there by default on the camera, we have our audio source that we added as a component, and we have our audio clip. Now what do? Well, we want to play whenever the ball bounces into something. Whenever it hits something, we want to play this click sound. And to do that, let's go and find our script, which is the ball script. Open up Visual Studio. Give that a moment to load if it's not already open for you. Waiting. Okay, and down the very bottom of this script, we'll just tuck it down the bottom for now. I'm going to add a mechanism to play our audio clip. First of all, we will say whenever there is a collision. So if you remember to say, if you remember how to do that, then pause the video, do that now. We want to have our on collision enter 2D method set up. Okay, hopefully you paused and do that yourself. If not, let's do it together. Private void on, whoops, that's what happens when you push spacebar when you shouldn't. On collision, I'm just going to go back to here. On collision, enter 2D, excellent. And then within here, I'm going to show you a new concept. Here we go, a new concept that we haven't done yet, which is the concept of GetComponent. So when we are looking in Unity, we say, you know what, we want to play that cool ball bouncing clip. And Unity says, great, I don't know where it is. And we say, well, it's on the ball. And it's like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And say, well, it is in the audio source component. I want you to look at the audio source component, and there you will find the clip. There you will find the thing I want you to do. So this notion of GetComponent is a way to say that we're currently on this game object, but within the game object, there's a lot of stuff going on. We want you to look specifically at this component, the audio source component. Okay, so the way we do that is we type GetComponent and then open angled brackets. Within here, what is the component that we want to get? Well, the component is the audio source. We could also do this for the sprite renderer or for the other components that are on our game object, the rigid body 2D and so on, but we're wanting to we're wanting to say get the audio source. And then we do open close parentheses, dot, and now here's where we have our options. What do we want to do with our audio source? Well, we want to play it. So play. We've got a few different play options that we'll talk about throughout this section, but for now we're just doing play. And then open and close parentheses, semicolon. And that's it. This is how we play a sound effect. Save the game, back over into Unity, click on play, and we should, I think if my sound effects are on, there you go. Wonderful. Okay, so success, that's playing. One thing I didn't hear just now, but I know could be a thing. If we started with the ball nice and flush, touching the paddle, that'd be cool. When I click play, did you hear how it went click at the start? Because it's saying at the very start there is a collision event that takes place. The ball touches the paddle at the very, very start. It's not moving anywhere yet because we haven't forced it to move, but the audio knew that that collision event had taken place. So I'm going to give you a challenge here to say only play our audio clip if the game has started. So this is the challenge. Only play the sounds if, add an if statement so that our sounds only play if the game has started. We've done this particular if statement before. We've used this mechanism. So I want you to have a look in the script for any clues you might need and only play the sound effect if the game has started. Okay, take that on and I'll see you back in a moment. Right, so I mentioned we've done this before. Up at the top of our script, you can see if has not started, then do these particular things. We've used that for starting our game. Here we will say, we'll write an if statement. If what? If has started. If has started is true, i.e. yes, you have started. We don't need to say equals true. If you just have if as has started like that. No, whoops, I'm trying to put a semicolon when I should be putting my brackets. I'm trying to talk and do things at the same time. Always a great idea, Rick. Space. So if has started without a semicolon, might I add. Oops. And then, goodness me, what's my typing hand doing? Okay, and then we have our open and close brackets. Okay, there we go. So, and we've got a squiggly line underneath this one at the end because I've missed out one more. Okay, I need to make sure they match. This is why we have them line up. So we have our open and close, and then our if statement. If has started, get component audio source dot play, save, and then just very quickly jump back over. Make sure that when we start the game, we don't hear any sort of click, and that the game is ready to roll. I think I might have turned it on and off. No, there we go, and I didn't hear anything. Okay. Wonderful. There we go. We've got sound set up. Now that one particular sound playing over and over might be a little bit annoying after a while, so we want to create a little bit of variability, which we will do in the next video. So great work getting sound effects implemented, and I'll see you again soon.